Welcome to Lift History. On today's episode, I have invited one of my good friends in the vintage weights community to come on here and talk about how we both acquired Jackson Barbell weight sets recently. He got a set, and so did I. So we're going to chat about that as well as all kinds of other topics to do with vintage weights collecting. So if you are at all curious about vintage weights, tune in. But first, a quick message from something that's supporting this podcast, and that would be my collaboration with Microgains. This little tiny weight plate that I'm holding in my hands, this is a Vintage Gains calibration plate. I invented these so that at home, there's an easy way to put your weights on the scale, see what they weighed, and then use these quarter pound or half pound calibration weights with strong magnets on the back to bring your weights up to true weight. Or if they're mismatched, one's heavier than the other, to at least make sure that they are of equal weight to each other. If you're interested in supporting the show, then please head to microgains.com or go directly through the link in the description of this episode and pick up a set of Vintage Gains. You can get a set of quarter pound and half pounders for about $40. That's a fairly affordable way to take just about any iron weight plates and make them calibrated weight plates. Vintage Gains. And now, without further ado, let's get into some vintage weights talk. I have Nate on the podcast who goes by Deep Dish Globes on Instagram, and I suggest you follow him there because he has a bigger weight collection than I do and some really cool stuff. Welcome to the show, Nate.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
The main reason I wanted to have you on was to talk about how we both acquired Jackson Barbell sets recently, because that's a pretty astronomical thing, I think, for any collector. But just to kind of get the listeners acquainted with you, could you just give a background? Like, how did you get into vintage weights in the first place?
Yeah, sure. The short story is I was cruising Facebook Marketplace before I even had any social media. I was on my wife's account. And about 2 years prior, we had our second kid. So that's what started my home gym journey. So then I was looking on Facebook Marketplace and I found this pair of blue 40-pound round heads, probably about like 5 minutes away. And this was January 2021. So it was kind of, still COVID going on, still a lot of things shut down. Prices were still sky high and they were $1.50 a pound. So I jumped on them real quick and I went and got them. And that's pretty much all she wrote. That's all it took was one pair of
Yeah.
blue 40-pound round heads. And then I got a couple more pair. And then this one pickup, this guy had said to me, "Are you trying to put together a set?" And I had never really thought of it. And then I was like, "Yeah, actually, I am trying to put together a set." So
Why not?
that's what started the whole thing. Yeah.
I mean, I think the blue round heads are kind of a cool curiosity piece to begin with. Sold, in the big box sporting goods stores. So it's neat that that was your first kind of pickup. Mine was milled Yorks. That's what I was going for, and I've told the story a million times on my podcast. But it just leads you down that road. One pickup
Oh
to the
yeah.
next, or maybe something comes along with it, and now you're curious about like, oh, what's this company Billard, or what's this company whatever. So that's cool. I knew that about the roundheads, but I didn't know the timeline. I didn't realize you were like a post-COVID entry to vintage weights as well. So
Yeah, it was nothing really I had planned on or even expected. I mean, I was always
yeah.
interested in gym equipment and lifting. Like I said, about 2 years, 2018 is when I started the home gym after we had our second kid. But before that, I was always commercial gyms. Didn't have any equipment at home, and I've always bought used too. So actually, the first pickup I ever made for to put together my home gym was on that Let Go app
Okay.
before they switched to Offer Up. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, and that was 2018, and it's been a rabbit hole since then.
Yeah, I've always had a home gym. I mean, I've dabbled in commercial gyms, but I I didn't, even though I had my milled Yorks and I knew that's what I wanted, I wouldn't say I actually started like really collecting and diving into strength history and vintage weights until probably around that same time. So then we got acquainted because you hit me up and said, "Hey, I think there's a York Power Bar near you. are you interested in it? I would like it if you're not. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm interested in it. And I went out and I actually ended up getting it after some back and forth. And I had that power bar for a long time. And then recently I got it one that is a little better condition. So I ended up getting rid of that one. But that was how we sort of started interacting with each other. And then listeners, if you uh if you imagine like, the interactions between any type of people that are into a hobby, collecting whatever, sports cards, autographs, whatever. Um I'm pretty sure we've gone through all the different levels. Like we've sold stuff to each other, we've traded things, we've done like a joint pickup
Hmm.
uh deal with each other. We've all kinds of stuff. You're the only person besides my children to be a cameraman for my YouTube channel. Nate was the one
Yeah.
who met me at York Barbell. So if anyone's seen the York Barbell tour, that's Nate behind the camera. And I think you did a great job, man.
No, thanks. That's my first
No,
time.
I was gonna say, like, no
Yeah.
film history or anything.
No, 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 nothing at all. I used to make these little slideshows back, probably like in my early 20s of like pictures and stuff. I'd give them away as presents. I made one for like my mom's 60th birthday, stuff like that. So, but
There
not
you go.
nothing like filming or anything.
Well, I mean, listeners, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Or if you're just curious, go back again and look at it, and you'll see what I mean. Like he's doing like these panning shots, like walking side to side, and like it was good, man. So yeah, I
Yeah.
hope we can hit up maybe like the Stark Center or Sornex.
Ah,
You know,
I love it. Both of them would be awesome.
yeah. So like
Uh,
Summer Strong would be awesome. That's in May, and that would be phenomenal. Like a big old festival going on at Sornex, and you get to go see the museum. It's just for me, it's a tough one since home gym con is like April time frame to
yeah.
try to get away for a weekend 2 months in a row is pretty tough with a
No,
family and
I,
obligations.
I hear you. That's why I'm not a lock in for home gym con yet, because I'm going to be in Florida for one of my kids' swim meets the week before. So those back to back, it's a
Yeah,
hard sell with the wife and
it's
kids.
tough.
So yeah.
Well,
But yeah, but back
I
to that
hey,
power
yeah,
bar
please
ad real
do.
quick though. It was
Yeah,
funny. I
yeah, go for
remember
it.
you used to be able to like comment on ads. Do you remember that? Like I don't
I
think you could
do.
do it anymore. And I saw you had commented, and I think I had seen you in these Facebook groups before. So I was like, oh, let
Yeah,
me reach out to him and see if he is getting it or what the deal is. And yeah, it was pretty. We clicked from there, man. It's been cool.
that was a good one. The Chrome Yorks that are over my shoulder here,
Yeah,
that some of my followers might have
they're
found, and then over your shoulder
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, that was our joint kind of pickup. And the first time I met you face to face, you drove to Pittsburgh, and that's memorable because you don't stumble across Chrome deep dish Yorks that often, and it was two pair of 45, so it worked out perfectly to do like a joint pickup. No one had to really kind of give up anything they didn't want to give up to the other person.
Yeah,
That was
to
cool.
date,
And
I
so,
still think that's my best like in the wild find was these Chrome Yorks, and I still remember it pretty clear too. It was like a Sunday morning. They popped up, and I think I could still see the how you say only 5 minutes old on there.
yeah, yeah.
And we had just been talking. You were like, "Oh, I was planning on making a trip out to Ohio soon." And I didn't think I'd be able to get out there. So that's when I reached out to you. And I was like, oh, when are you going to Ohio? And you're like, oh, I don't know. It's not a good time. And then I said, well, I found Chrome Yorks. I think there's two pairs. Let's split it. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, suddenly it became a good time.
Yeah.
Well,
And
thankfully, I don't know how you do it with your wife. With my wife, I there were a couple things I told her, like, listen, like if it's York deep dish, that was my first goal was York deep dish. So I was like York deep dish, and then if it was Jackson, like I really, unless it's something major I'm gonna miss with the kids, like I want to like pull the ripcord and like pull the ejection handle, how whatever metaphor you want to use, and take off. And to
yeah.
my wife's credit, like multiple instances, like going to Rochester to get the first pair of York deep dish, and then those, she was like, "Yep, go ahead, I got it." So she was awesome with it. So as soon as you said it was York, I like went to her and she was like, "Yep, go ahead," and then boom, I was on the road. That was that. But it
Yeah.
was you were hitting me up with like updates, and we were back and forth, so it felt like a mission. Like it was cool.
Yeah, it went fast. It really did. I mean, time's of the essence when there's Chrome York deep dish on the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Now my wife's the same way
man,
though too. She knows if I say the words Jackson or York deep dish, something's going
yeah.
down. So I don't know if she
Yeah.
dreads those phrases or she likes them, but she knows I'm serious when I say them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a family man. It's not like I'm missing like my kid's birthday or something. But if it's a regular old soccer practice that we gotta contend with or whatever, then yeah, my wife's cool. Like, yeah, take off. I got it.
Yeah, same.
So then those were wild finds that we're talking about, listeners, meaning that it was just a regular average person that was listing these things for sale. So if you're unaware, if you're new to vintage weights in the wild, that's what it refers to. The Jackson barbell plates that we both got recently were not in the wild. They found us. We didn't find them. Is the best way to put it. So the first set, um, basically the seller contacted me, and I knew that I wasn't in a position, excuse me, at the time, to really like make a great offer, a fair offer on it. Because if someone comes to me, it's a little different ethically in my mind that like if someone's selling something in the wild and I pay them what they want and they're happy and I'm happy, then I'm cool ethically. But if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, how much is this worth?" or anything like that, I want to give them a fair offer. And I just told the seller, "Look, I can't, I just can't swing it right now." And she asked, "Oh, is there anyone else you can think of?" And then you asked me, I had been chatting with you about it because I text with Nate probably, I don't know, every day, if not every other day about weights and things. And it was like probably within an hour of her saying that to me that you sent me a message and said, "Hey man, if you're not going to go for those, could I make an offer?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, like it's perfect timing." So then you want to take it over from here. So what was it like? What are these Jacksons that we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so for my end of it was, you had shared with me that, that lady had reached out and, and then you said you weren't in a position. And originally I thought, oh, there's no way I'm in a position for them either. And then I just kept thinking about them. And they were really
Yeah.
just, sitting right here in the front of my mind. And
Yeah.
had to go, discuss it with the wife first, whether it was, feasible. And, it took a little convincing, but I got her blessing. So yes, then you provided me with the information, and it turns out it's a full Jackson Generation Two set. One owner by a guy named Bill Trumbo, lived out in California, and he was part of kind of the original. There he is, the Trumbo back. I got a
Yeah.
picture here as well. Him and another guy, and
There
you
you
can
go.
actually see the weights down in the bottom.
Oh,
That's part
nice.
of the Jackson set. Yeah, you can see the collars
Okay. Yeah.
and definitely you can tell
And
it's a
he's got
Jackson
that
bar.
Trumbo has that classic like 1940s barrel chest, like 50 plus
Yes.
inch chests that they would like completely take pride in. Like Bob Hoffman used to like put his chest out.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
almost like that statue of Bob out in front of York Barbell.
exactly. Mhm.
That's what that picture looks like.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was kind of his trademark from what I've learned since I heard his name is his back and his chest were of the day some of the best. So one owner set. So I reached out to the lady. She sent me all this provenance. I have pictures. I have magazines with pictures of him in it. He was kind of, he was probably like known on the scene, but not famous or never reached the level where it was his career, I would say. I think his best accomplishment was second in Mr. California in 1947 and first Mr. Riverside, California in 1948. So I
He
don't
won
have anything.
I just read it. So in Strength and Health, he appeared in
Hmm.
Strength and Health, the York publication, listeners, and Bill Trumbo. This is Strength and Health with the famous Abby Stockton on the cover. And there's actually some pictures of Bill Trumbo
Yes.
with Abby Stockton, which is pretty
Uh-huh.
coll. She's a legendary figure in York barbell history. So this one, Strength and Health, is I believe it's 1946. I'm gonna say 1944. Let me see here. I should have looked ahead of time. Apologies. But in any case, it in the article, here we go. Colossus is the word. And there's Bill Trumbo. And in the article, Colossus is the word. It shows the two things you just mentioned, Nate. So it's got like that shot, and I think that's the picture you just held up. That's the
Yeah, the
picture of
back.
him. No, the of him. Is that the exact picture, or is that just him doing a chest pose again?
Is it the same picture? I might just
No,
be
it's
him
a
doing a
different picture.
chest pose. Okay.
That's just like he's the go-to pose. So that's him with his back and his chest featured because it says in the article that his chest measurement at a body weight of 225 pounds is 52 and a half inches. That's pretty wild. I mean, I wear
Yeah.
like a size 42 suit. So like, and I'm not that, dressy fancy of a guy, but I'm pretty sure doesn't a suit size correlate with your chest, your
Yeah,
torso?
for sure.
I don't
They measure your chest for sure.
know. Yeah, yeah. So listeners, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Drop a comment, educate me on suit sizes. But as far as Bill Trumbo, extraordinary, 15 and a half. And then it says that he concentrates his training efforts on developing his chest and back, and that he would do parallel bar dips with deep breathing for his chest, which I thought was cool. I mean, I do plenty of dips, but I don't think I focus on deep breathing. So
No,
that
yeah,
was
me either.
interesting. And it says in the article that he won the Mr. San Fernando Valley physique title.
Oh, okay. That's the one I was thinking of, not Mr. Riverside.
And it was he said that he won that last year. And then this, again, apologies for not knowing right off the bat, this is March 1948, this issue of Strength and Health. So that means he was the 1947 San Fernando Valley physique champion. And it lists a bunch of other stuff about how some of his best strength feats are 6 repetition presses, overhead presses with a pair of 100
Hmm.
pound dumbbells. That's pretty intense. I
Yeah, it's
constantly
definitely
have you ever heard of the stories of Grimmick into like his later years as he worked like
some of
going into the
them.
York gym? Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
Jan Dellinger mentioning how into like his later years, well after competition, when he was like an editor and worked at York, he would still go down to the gym at York and he would pick up both of the hundos and just put them up overhead for reps, being the legend that he was. So that's
Yeah.
what I thought of when I saw that. I was like, wow, man, I bet you Bill Trumbo is just doing it like John Grimmick, putting those overhead.
I hear that too, and I think I wonder what dumbbells he used. Were they 100-pound York
Yeah,
globes, 100-pound Jackson
true,
globes? Were they
true.
yeah, Milo globes or something? I always wonder what weights they use to achieve some of these feats when I hear about it.
Well, it's really interesting, having seen pictures of his gym and whatnot. In order to see the pictures of the Jackson set, I also saw pictures of the rest of the gym, and yeah, it's interesting to see his setup because it was extensive. I mean, the home gym scene isn't quite, right now it's booming, but it wasn't always that way. So this guy
No.
was putting together this stuff in the 1940s and 50s and lots and lots of stuff in his gym.
Yeah,
But this ad is really cool. It says in his own handwriting, which I'll be sending this to Nate. It says, "This is like my set, 365 pounds," and it's the Jackson #1 Olympic barbell set.
yeah.
But your set is Generation 2, and I think it's
Hmm.
interesting because this particular #1 Olympic barbell set is, I believe, a Gen 2. So listeners, if you're unaware of generations and things, that just means like as a weight producer is producing things, if they change their design, then people, namely collectors like us, will refer to it as the next generation. So for example, a very modern example would be LeMaster. I love LeMaster deep dish. Well, their first generation had flat rims and they were made in Mexico. Their current plates that they sell, LeMaster, are second generation, if you will, because they have rounded rims. They're lathed on the back and they're made in the United States. So the design changed slightly. So like
Yeah,
my
he's really done a good job with them.
so just an example, my set is a 1A, not a steak sauce. It's a 1A set, but it's basically a generation 3 plate. And correct me if I'm wrong, because it has the lead pockets here.
Yeah, the lead
Whereas
pockets are a pretty big giveaway.
whereas in the ad and your plates that you got generation 2, no lead
Yeah,
pockets, right?
right. Yeah, I think you could see him. Right behind me. There's an example of both of them.
Yeah, there
The
you go.
jump. Gen 3 and Gen 2. The Gen 3 I have are Erie plates, but
Mhm.
still Gen 3.
So then no lead pockets. And then generation one, there's, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, there's Jackson lettering across the top,
Yeah.
but
hmm
then nothing on the bottom, right? I think
Uh,
for
the
Gen
the
1.
the weights are still there. There's no cross hubs. It's just a
Okay.
tall hub.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Not the
Yeah.
cross hub. Okay.
hmm
So it's still there in the numbering, just it's the tall hub. Yeah. I've only seen those 35-pound uh one Jacksons
Yeah.
that are here in
They were
Pittsburgh.
first generation, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. They sure
Yeah.
were.
They're
Oh,
special.
I went to buy a pair of unbranded Ivancos,
hmm
and this very friendly, nice guy. I follow, he and his brother have an amazing gym, and I follow them on Instagram, and they follow me, so I keep up with them. His brother's a natural bodybuilder. It's pretty cool, competitive, very experienced. In any case, I went to buy these unbranded Ivancos, really, decent price, fair price, and I thought I never had any, so I'll go pick them up. And he said, "Oh, I also have these Jacksons," and my you know, stomach dropped, but they weren't for sale. He knows exactly what they are, and knows how much money they might go for, thousands. And but he was nice enough when I went to pick up the unbranded Ivancos, he brought them out to show them to me, and he even let me hub lift uh, the 35s. So I don't own any Generation One Jacksons just yet, but I can say that I've hub lifted 35s.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. For your 1930s, somewhere around
Yeah,
then is when
pre-war.
he made them. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely amazing. But back to the Trumbo stuff. Two of the
yeah.
things that I
Please.
got were probably the most coolest provenance were um, Bill had written Andy Jackson, and Andy Jackson had written him back twice. So I actually have the letters signed by Andy down at the bottom that he
Amazing.
wrote back to Bill Trumbo. And the first one basically consists of Andy responding back to, I assume it was an inquiry by Bill Trumbo about, what do you have for sale? How can I get it? And he writes, "Oh, I can have a pamphlet. They cost about this much. Check with your local freight dealer, and it's usually about this much, and this is how you can get them." But he also knows Trumbo, and he references his back in the letter, the Trumbo back. And I don't know if I forget if it's the first letter or the second letter, but he makes reference to his back being a barn door, and he's like, "Oh, it
That's
looks like
awesome.
you're in the yeah, it looks like you're in the barn door business, sigh," which is what he wrote. So,
That's
and then
so
in both
cool.
both letters too, he references his time in California, I guess. Post military or during the military, towards the end of his
Uh,
service, I think. And I think he really was fond of California. I don't know why he stayed here in New Jersey.
I
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, and listeners, if you don't know, Andy Jackson, just like Nate, is in New Jersey. Andy Jackson was from New Jersey, and that's where his house was. That he made his weights in the basement of the house. The foundry would drop them off there, and he'd slide all thousands and thousands of pounds of the blanks down into the basement, and then he had his machines and things that he'd lathe them and work on them, and it was for the most part a one man show.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so
That's
then,
so amazing.
what do you think? And how do you think Andy knew of Trumbo? Just from magazines and things like that?
Yeah, I think him being active, that Southern California was kind of the mecca of where bodybuilding and really physical culture kind of started to grow,
Yeah.
exponentially. So I think just Trumbo kind of being the epicenter of that. Like, here's a picture of him down at Muscle Beach performing some acrobatic,
Oh,
feats with some of the
cool.
people down there, and that's the original location, not the Venice Beach location that we're so familiar with Arnold, and a lot of greats. Then I guess they were south of that.
Mm.
I forget the exact location where the original Muscle Beach was, but yeah, I
Well,
think just him being in the epicenter and having that back, and
yeah.
being in, entering some contests and doing well. At the time, the coming second place in Mr. California, I assume, was a pretty big deal.
Well, you put it in a really good context that, no offense to like Wyoming or Idaho, but California coming in second place to Mr. California is a little different than Mr.
Right.
Idaho because
Yeah,
California was
exactly.
like the center of bodybuilding. So,
Right.
um, two of the things too that the seller of your set was nice enough. She sent me some things as a thank you for referring you, and with those things were some of these little programs from things that Trumbo had competed in, and I'm going to send these on to you. I think they're better, you know, in your possession with the weight set. But to show listeners what you're talking about, like here's John Grimmick went out west, took a trip, and this is in the 19 late 40s to 50s, and he's going to Vic Tanny, another name in strength history's gym. And
Yeah.
Vic Tanny is producing basically an exhibition, if you will, a bodybuilding exhibition, and the headliner is John Grimmick. But then this program, when you open it, there's a middle segment after intermission that it's the best of the West. And there's several different people, bodybuilders from out West, that are the best of the West. And Bill Trumbo is one of them. It says Bill Trumbo, broadest shoulders and largest chest on the coast. So, and I mean, this is an event that had John Grimmick, had Tony Terlazzo there, uh, Burt Goodrich, Mr. America of 1939 was there. I mean, so he was rubbing
Yeah.
shoulders with the greats.
Yeah, for
That's for
sure.
sure.
And then,
Oh,
well, to segue into one of those things, rubbing shoulders with the greats, the seller recently sent me this book,
oh
um,
man.
this Bill Pearl book, Beyond the Universe, the Bill Pearl story. And I was excited just to get this. This was kind of an unexpected thing that she sent me. And then I opened the page, and what do I see? But that it's actually signed by
Amazing.
Bill Pearl. And to kind of coincide with what you said about he was, rubbing shoulders with some of the best at the time. It says to Bill Trumbo, a person I have always admired, Bill Pearl, 2004. So,
That is very
I mean,
cool.
so that's, Grimmick, Bill Pearl, those are, some of the best of the best legends.
Yeah. I mean, here's 1945 Senior Weightlifting Championship and Mr. America contest. And Bill Trumbo competed in Mr. America 1945, and he came in 10th place. And I mean, some of the people competing are phenomenal. I mean, first place that year is Sam LaPrince. So, um, yeah, it's very cool, and it's a very, I think, unique situation you have with your Jackson set that if you're unaware, listeners, this usually doesn't happen. You usually don't have such a cool history, personal use history behind a set. Um, so it's yeah, it's very cool, and I think a huge thank you to the seller of your set because easily this other stuff, the papers, whatever, it took some effort to get those out to you. So it's really cool to keep those with the weights, I think.
Yeah, it was great. From start to finish, great communication. And everything happened like they said they would. They were patient with me. I was patient with them. They came all the way from California back to New Jersey. Where they probably originally began. So that's kind of
Yeah.
fun to think about. And yeah, the seller was great, and the fact that they had all this stuff. Here's another thing that is probably the second best thing that I got at the Provenance is Jackson International Barbell and Dumbbell Training System. It's kind of an advertisement for Jackson Barbell stuff, and in here you have a picture of John Grimmick, using Jackson plates. I think that's a Gen 145 he's got there. And then you have the picture of Bill Trumbo in there, and it's his
Nice.
back pose again. It
I mean,
says, let me
wow.
read it. It says, "This amazing back of Bill Trumbo was developed by barbell exercise." So
It sure was. I mean, the barn door.
the barn door business.
The thing about the letters is that beyond, I mean, it's cool you have an Andy Jackson autograph, but it's so interesting to see a little bit of Andy's like personality coming through, talking about his war years, talking about California. That's very cool. What do you plan to do with some of this stuff? Like you have listeners that if you're watching this or if you aren't watching this, if you ever check out Nate on Instagram, Deep Dish Globes, you'll see he has in your relatively new space. You switched, you moved, and then you set
Yeah,
up a new home gym. You've got this humongous storage rack behind you here with some of your weights. So is there a way you're going to piece together some of the stuff like the Bill Pearl book or the letter or anything?
yeah, I got a lot of space. So we moved about a year and a half ago, and I'm in kind of about a third or half of a pole barn now as my gym, and that was a big selling point for me for the
Yeah.
house. And basically, what the rack is, wanted to not only display but have all these weights functional, so I can grab them off, I can look at them, and I can grab them off easily and load them onto the bar because yes, my plans were as far as the weights is I'm going to lift them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna use the bar. I'm gonna use all the weights
Heck yeah.
as much as I possibly can because that's what they're made to do. It's like classic car. I wouldn't want a classic car unless I could take it out for a drive. So
Yeah.
um, but then as far as the display, I got them up there right now. It's all right. You can see them all. I have them all displayed and ready for use. But I might have to switch things up since I don't have as many 45-pound plates now. So,
Gotcha.
and then the,
So,
the rack is actually two Rogue Arm sixes that I pieced
okay.
together. I bought them separately off Marketplace and
That's the way,
just put.
man.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I always get everything's got to come off Marketplace, and then I just put them together and. Yeah,
No,
it's
I
big.
like
So
it.
I squat on the one side and I bench on the other side.
Very nice. So then how about, this was, like I said, my set came to me and there's a video I shot the night that the final, shipments arrived, um, that I can link to this one, listeners. But in short, similar to this one, I was fortunate enough that a seller made a comment on my YouTube channel and then saying that, he had this Jackson set. I got in contact and made an offer and he accepted. And next thing I know, I was, selling off a lot of my weights to try to fund it. And that was tough, some of them, but it was worth it. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, it's still too good to be true. Like it's still, I'm like stopping down at my gym, even when I'm not training, just to kind of check on the Jacksons, just see how
Oh
they're
yeah,
doing.
right,
Like
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
oh
I mean, isn't that amazing? I mean, both sets from California,
yeah, yeah. Mine
and
came from just outside San Jose, and yours came from San Jose.
yeah. So isn't it crazy though? Just
Wow.
this set kind of comes your way, and then this other set follows right behind it, and
Yeah, yeah,
like you said, it almost never happens like that, but
yeah.
it's
And I
just
mean,
crazy.
a couple. I don't even know. I can go back and look at the dates, but it wasn't too far after yours. But I was just in a better position, and I think I just, in terms of like my life and family obligations and things, I was more apt to pull the trigger because it's a lot of work to start like rounding up stuff to sell and raise the funds if you don't already have them. Yeah, like I try to keep my gym funds separate from my family funds, and if you don't already have stuff saved up, whew, it takes some time. Packaging plates is not is not an easy endeavor for shipping.
Yeah, I had to do the same thing. I had to sell off a lot of stuff that I went out and grabbed it myself out in the wild. And
Yeah,
some of that stuff you get a little attached to, but sometimes when you find one of these, grail pieces or something that you've always wanted, I think it's worth it to sell,
yeah,
stuff that you maybe think you can get again or you can live without to get something you really want. And especially if you're going to use it and lift it and keep it alive, that's
yeah,
the best part of all this is, these are going to get at least another 20 years, 30 years, hopefully of
yeah,
use out of them guaranteed before they go on to the next person.
for sure. I mean, in one way, shape, or form, I don't think a day has gone by since my Jacksons arrived that I haven't lifted them, worked on them, done something with them. Because like here, they're sitting actually 5 pound and a 2.5 pound are sitting on the floor next to me. Because just before the podcast, I was touching up the lettering that I did on them. So I've been lettering them, and
Yeah, they look great.
I'll have a video coming out with that and some of the mistakes I made and some of the tips I have so people don't make mistakes. Um, and then of course just lifting them. Like I don't know about you, but I get like motivated. Like I can't like I'm already thinking about tomorrow. Like, oh man, yeah, I'm doing this tomorrow. I can load up. the 45s, and then maybe I'll, throw a couple of 25s on this bar and I can do this. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm becoming like a little bit of a vintage weight snob because I have I have access to a gym at work, and I go in there, and it's not as exciting and
Oh,
it's not as fun. They have Hex dumbbells and some mostly
oh
Cap
no.
brand and mixed brand Olympic weights. There's nothing wrong with them. They're
Yeah.
fine. They are weight, but it's not like coming out here and like you said, getting excited and motivated to lift them. It's just a different feel for me, which is part of the appeal, really.
Yeah.
So,
Well, when you're putting those weights on the bar, I mean, you got this guy Bill Trumbo that had been lifting them. Like that's phenomenal. And
yeah.
I mean, people stopping by his place, stopping by his house. There's a Strength and Health magazine, or no, maybe it was an Iron Man. There's a magazine that I went through that he had handwritten a note, or no, I'm sorry, flip that. The person that had visited him that was in the magazine wrote a note
Hmm.
like, "Thanks so much for letting me train at your place. It was great to see you." And I'm blanking on the name right now, but it's just, yeah, I mean, not just him, but some other lifters of that era came through and stopped by his place. So that's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I think it was kind of a small community of people that were into this stuff. A lot of people, thought back then if you lifted weights, you turned into some kind of monster or freak or something.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
sideshow. Which is kind
Yeah.
of how physical culture started getting its hold in popular culture was through strongman sideshow type things.
Sure.
Um,
And I mean,
but yeah,
it's when people come through Pittsburgh, other collectors, whatever, I'm like, yeah, stop by, check out the gym. So I could see the same thing for sure. Now, how about in the wild? You pick up anything lately in the wild that you don't mind sharing?
yeah, there's been a couple things that popped up in the wild, but I only got them through the help of other collectors. So right after I got the Trumbo Generation Jackson 2 set, some Jackson number 5 plates and bars popped up in Michigan. And through the help of another very generous collector with their time, they were able to go pick them up for me and ship them out to me. So I've been after the Jackson number 5 bar for a long time. So I was really, really excited to get that. And for those who don't know, the number 5 set is kind of a weird size. It's not standard. It's not Olympic. It's somewhere in the middle. So you need those specific plates. You need that specific bar to really be able to use them. Which again, I don't like having it if I can't use it. So that happened. And then just a couple weeks ago, through another collector who saw something and let some other collectors know about it. There's some more Jackson plates, and I thought there were more number 5 plates.
It's been
And
raining Jacksons, man.
I know it never
It's
happens
wild.
like that. It's so weird.
Yeah.
And then so so sure enough, I was able to get some standard Jackson plates. I thought they were number
Yeah.
5, and then I came here. I tried to put them on the number 5 bar, and they didn't budge. And I was like, oh man, I'm like these are standards, which I wasn't disappointed, but it was definitely a little surprise. But
Still.
yeah, I had 2 of the 1 1/4s right here.
Oh,
You
it's
know,
so cool. I love the
um,
little plates for some reason. I don't know.
oh, they're great.
They're just cool. I got a whole
You know,
stack of different ones over there that my kids play with all the time.
oh yeah, same. Yeah, my kids do the same. You know what? These remind me of too is I won some micro gains plates in the
Nice.
garage gym competition, and it's just funny. I was thinking about I had them laying next to each other. I took a picture. I was actually going to put a post on Instagram. And there's a lot of similarities between Jackson and Micro Gains. They're kind of like a one-man company.
Sure.
Micro Gains has Walt too,
Yeah.
but
There you
you
go.
know,
There you go.
I follow them on Instagram. He puts out funny stuff, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of funny stuff during Christmas.
Oh, Walt
But
almost didn't survive Halloween. They had a whole series where Walt was gonna, with this Michael Myers looking character was coming after Walt. So yeah, they're micro gains. If you don't follow them, guys, is quite entertaining on social media.
made in the USA, one man company,
True,
and
true.
pretty innovative, which Andy Jackson was known
Yeah,
for, kind of in his day. If you look at his bars and the split sleeve and the design, I mean, for it being 1940s,
yeah.
1930s, to think about, that's better than some of the bars that are still being sold today is just crazy to me. So, but yeah, that's
It
what these
is.
1 1/4s remind me of is the microgain 1 1/4s that I use pretty frequently. So.
Those are really good points. I mean, a while ago, like at least a couple years now, I posted a bunch of small, like 1 1/4 standards with my micro gains saying like, oh, look, it's the vintage micro gains. But I didn't even nearly draw all the comparisons you did. So yeah, I'm sure Mike will be complimented to be compared to like such a legendary person in strength history like Andy Jackson.
Yeah, I mean,
That's no light compliment. That's pretty heavy
no,
stuff.
no, no. I mean, it's yeah, that clip on micro gains play, it's just so easy, you know.
Yeah,
You just
they're great. Yeah, the
it
dumbbells.
works so well. So like I said, I had them laying out, and I started thinking about it. I was like, oh man, there's like a lot of similarities here. So maybe micro gains will be the new future of vintage weights for our kids or something.
Well, I'm doing the best I can to collaborate
Yeah.
with them on vintage
Oh yeah,
gains.
they
And
are.
actually, Nate, did you have I recorded the opening to this episode before I got on with Nate. It's something I've been doing lately with my podcast so my guests don't have to sit there and stare at me while I tell, "Oh, use this code or whatever." So, Nate, did you know what I was talking about before I got on here? I was talking about vintage gains. So there you go.
Yeah.
This is unplanned but a very organic little plug that yeah, I really part of the reason I went to Mike with my idea for these like do it yourself calibration plates was everything you just said. Like it's a really mom and pop, homegrown, right here in my state in Pennsylvania. He's only about an hour and a half from me, company that he made from nothing. I mean, Mike was like spray painting the first micro gains in his shed in his backyard. And there's like some early posts on Instagram of him with like a mask on and stuff. So yeah, it's I knew it was a company I wanted to work with and that I could trust. And you know, I was
Yeah,
right. Been
I
great.
really enjoyed that interview you did with him. It gave like a little insight to somebody who's starting a business, you know, or any kind of business he had. You know,
Yeah.
some of the insights he gave was pretty cool. So I really enjoyed that interview you did with him.
Well, any listeners still listening now, thanks for listening to this whole episode. I'll give you a little treat, a little preview that I haven't really let the cat out of the bag on is that similar to the way I went to microgains and I did like a tour of microgains, this machine's for this is this, and then I did a podcast interviewing Mike. I have plans next month to go to Mutant Metals, and I'm gonna sit
Oh,
down.
cool.
Yeah, Chris is gonna take me around. And to make a comparison to Andy Jackson, do you know where Mutant Metals is located?
No, I don't. Is it in Jersey here?
It's located in Pennsylvania, but I meant
Oh,
like,
okay.
is it in a warehouse? Where is it located? I'm making a comparison to Andy Jackson. So where do you think he does his work?
Oh, in his basement at
You're
home.
darn right.
No way.
Yeah. How cool is that? So yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
So it's a loose Jackson reference, but I think it's
Yeah,
applicable
for
to what we're
sure.
talking about. So it's
Oh,
pretty cool that Mutant Metals is in his basement, just like Andy Jackson. The man says, have a nice day, honey, to his wife, and goes down in the basement to go to work. So yeah, pretty cool. So I'm going to take a little tour of the basement company, and then I'm going to sit down with him and go through
yeah.
and interview him about how he went about this. Like, how did mutant metals happen? So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm also saving a couple bucks on shipping because the other reason I'm going up there is he did a custom UDA ultimate dip attachment for me that
He
I
makes
don't want to
those
reveal too many details
he makes
of
those snap.
so yeah.
Does he make those snapback monolith attachments too? That's what.
Yeah, that's my next
Oh
purchase.
man, yeah, those are so
Yeah,
nice, aren't they? I gotta get some
they're
of them
sweet.
eventually. Yeah,
I I mean, this is what I'm working with. Just a
yeah,
regular old J cup. So
yeah.
the I just didn't I felt like why spend the money on like, I don't know, Titan roller cups or whatever when I've got this guy in Pennsylvania making these amazing ones. Like I'm just gonna save my money for Mutant Metals.
Yeah. No,
So
no.
that's yeah, UDA first. Plus I was kind of under the gun because he with his deal with Rogue, he kind of to lessen his load, he's not making the UDAs as much, I don't think.
Oh,
Um
okay. I didn't. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that.
I don't want to misspeak. I'll double check.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
I'll
sure
double
you'll
check.
have all the info for us. But yeah,
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
bring it back to the vintage gains and the Jackson weights, real quick though. I mean,
Sure.
have you weighed the Jacksons that you got? Because mine are all within maybe a quarter of a pound or dead on. So
Yeah.
not necessarily you wouldn't need it for them, but I have other weights here, like my Paramounts are all about 2 pounds underweight. So something like
Yeah.
that. I need some vintage gains for,
There you go. And I mean, they're for modern weights. I threw them on some blobs today and posted a video of them on blobs. You can put them on any weights because I hate to tell you, listeners, weights are still very inaccurate. But the
Yeah.
reason Jacksons, to show you if I can get the light right, like
Oh yeah,
my
I could
set of
see it.
Jacksons are a the 1A set, which he lathed if they needed to be. So yeah, they're very accurate. Um, I was doing the math. I think the most inaccurate are actually my 5 pounders.
Oh really?
Yeah,
What are
my
they?
five.
Are they like five and a half or something?
They're yeah, and when you do the math on it, percentage wise, because
Hmm.
to try to compare, you can't say, oh wow, they're only a quarter pound on a 5 pounder versus quarter pound on a 45 pounder. Well, that's a
Right.
huge difference.
Big
So to
difference.
percentage wise, the 5 pounders are the only ones that are outside 2% tolerance, and then almost every single other plate is under 1%, if not perfect. And there's
Yeah.
several, like the 25 box cars are spot on, like 25.0, which is
I
pretty
love those
wild.
plates.
Yeah.
Yeah, those box cars, man. I don't know what it is or why they're so attractive to the eye to me, but man, they're cool.
They're up behind me here. Just a sec. The box cars, instead of having the typical lead pockets, they
Oh
have
yeah, look at that.
they have down on the bottom here, kind of like a train, the box car, kind of lead pockets at the bottom. Where,
Yeah.
and we mentioned lead pockets before. Can you break it down for the listeners if anyone has no idea what we're talking about? Lead pockets on these plates.
Yeah, sure. So it's funny because we talked about this before too, is with the 1A set and he lathed them. So you really didn't even need the lead
Yeah,
pockets, but
it's kind of
before
redundant.
that, he Andy Jackson didn't pour these weights at the foundry himself, but he handled them all himself and had them delivered to his house. But they come from the foundry and they could be underweight and or in some cases overweight, I'm sure. But if they're underweight, he was innovative, like we were just talking about, and built these pockets into them so you could add lead self calibrate your weights, which is just another cool thing to think about back in the
Yeah.
the 50s that he was thinking of this. He really had he really was in mind thinking of accuracy. I think for competitions too. So
Yeah, I mean,
you saw a lot of older pictures of Jackson weights being used in competitions.
these like lengthy advertisements, I find interesting. You don't see a lot of like multi-paragraph advertisements
No.
in magazines, but when you read them from any of the companies, there's so much hyperbole. There's so much like, this is the greatest, da, 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 da. But you start to pick up on the Jackson ones that he's not just saying, you know, very vague adjectives like greatest or best. He's saying things like you said, these are the most accurate.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the man, it's not that he didn't, try to sell his product, but he wasn't lying. They are very accurate, and he developed and was innovative. Um, so yeah, when I see competition calibrated plates now with like the little disc, it makes me think of the lead pockets that,
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of it. And then, of course, you don't have to drop thousands of dollars. You can just get yourself some vintage gains and
Yeah.
add them on to calibrate your weights. So, yeah, I love how, um, I guess, like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, you can
Hmm.
kind of play that with Andy Jackson. Like
Yeah. For
you can
sure.
kind of like connect whatever mutant metals. Well, he works in his basement, Andy Jackson. You can kind of just connect these things sometimes. It's pretty cool. Well, in the wild for me, getting back to that, the only thing recently that really was like a kind of amazing pickup were these Pit Panther dumbbells that I got that I posted. They're iron grip style, I want to say, because they're Nebula. And I'm not sure whether they're Jade, Semco, or iron grip, but that style. But to be honest, I'm pretty tapped out after buying the Jacksons, so I'm not
Yeah.
exactly in a position unless it's a really good deal out there.
Well, we'll talk about. Didn't you just find some Jacksons in the wild?
Well, yeah, that's speaking of, yeah, it's just this flood of Jacksons that the two
Yeah.
of two of us are experiencing. Um, Probably, let's see. I want to say like, I don't know. I'm trying to think through it. Like maybe a week and a half before my Jacksons that I bought arrived, I found some Jacksons in the wild for the first time. So yeah, I mean, there had been one other time that a guy near me listed Jacksons, but he knew
Hmm.
that they were rare and they were Jacksons and that, he was commanding a premium. I ended up just buying like a heavy York dumbbell off of him because things were kind of wacky with the particular seller. Like he wasn't really giving me like a straight answer on the Jacksons, and it seemed like a
Hmm.
bidding war, and I just wasn't into that because he told me, oh well, this person offered me so much, and if I recollect, it was a number five set that he had, and not a full set. It was like he had the 25s, 35s, and the 50s, something like that.
Hmm.
So, not to downplay it, I'm thrilled to have my number fives, but that's the only other time in the wild around Pittsburgh that I saw him. But then, yeah, I saw in a picture in a listing, I saw a little J and a little lead pocket sticking out from underneath a 25, and I was like, oh boy, I know what that is. So,
Yeah, that was an
that's
eagle eye. The funny thing is, I told you because you showed me the picture, and I said, "Oh my God, I looked at that ad, and I didn't even say it." So I mean, that was a real eagle eye. I mean, I'm sure you're in the same boat, but I've looked at
oh
thousands and
my gosh.
thousands of ads, and
I see him in my dreams,
I'm
man.
right. I'm sitting there, I'm zooming in on the littlest possible thing, and to miss something, I really hope I don't, but clearly, there's probably tons of stuff I've missed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that particular one pickup was really cool because it feels like an accomplishment to have spotted something,
Oh
but
yeah,
it also is a sense of safety that like this isn't going to be a bidding war. This isn't going to be a competition because not that many other people are going to notice the letter J that happens to be sticking out underneath this 25. So that's
yeah.
where that really was a really nice pickup because I wasn't stressing it. There's some times where like I can't get out to pick something up till the next day, and you ever experience that? And you're like, oh man, like please,
Oh
no one
yeah.
else find this.
Yeah. Oh my God, I've been there so many times, and
Yeah,
you asked as politely as possible, "Oh, could you please mark pending
yeah,
or sold?" I'm definitely going to be there.
yeah.
And a lot of people aren't even that familiar with it. Some of these people selling these weights are like, "Oh, these were my grandfather's. I just decided to throw them up there," or "These were my husband's." He's since passed, and I'm finally selling his weights. And it's his widowed wife who's 75, 80 years old, and you ask her to mark something pending, she has no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah,
Why does this guy want me to whatever
yeah.
mark these rusty weights pending? And I mean, truly, that's what this was. This seller had a phenomenal setup. He had it looked like a I don't know, it looked like maybe a not even a double garage, like more than that. It was larger
Hmm.
than a double garage, and it was all his gym. And these were, he said, oh, I'm just starting to clear out some weights. And it was just this like, I mean, crazy pileup of all different types of weights. And it ended up being a 25-pound Olympic Jackson and a 5-pound Olympic Jackson that I'm pretty sure are Erie Jacksons. So that's, would you mind breaking down Erie Jacksons a little bit? Because that's actually something that you, early on when we were chatting with each other, you were like, hey, man, you ever see this gym in Erie? And you sent me a Google Maps link.
Yeah,
And when you pull it
yeah,
up on Google Maps, you can see through the window like full sets of Jacksons. And I was like, oh my gosh.
yeah. So, early on when I started collecting, like I said, I had no social media. I wasn't even on Facebook. Um, I used my wife's Facebook, and so I would Google a lot of stuff. I Google, York roundhead dumbbells, and there isn't much out there. You find some old, bodybuilding.com forum posts. And then when I learned about Jackson's, I started Googling that, and I think there's one website, I forget what it is, Iron History or something like that. I
Yeah.
forget. He's got some pictures up there, but I think there might be a paywall.
Oh,
But anyway,
you're talking not Iron History. You're talking about old
not
time
Iron
strongman.
History. That's it. That's
Yeah,
the one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's got
He's
that picture of Andy Jackson in the basement
yep.
with the plate on the lathe. That's kind of
Um,
the iconic
his name
picture.
is John Wood, runs that site. Really a very
Okay.
knowledgeable guy, and the website just has a smattering of like a little bit of everything. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so I found that, but then this gym in Erie popped up, Joe's Gym in Erie, Pennsylvania, and you pull it right up, and there's pictures of Jackson's in the gym, and
That's
I'm
crazy.
just like, oh my god, what's
Yeah.
going on? Where's this gym? And so I later found out, the more that Andy Jackson sold Jackson Barbell. I think it was in 1974, the mid 1970s, somewhere around there. And this family out in Erie bought the rights to Jackson. They bought a lot of what he had lying around, and they bought the molds to the plates, and then
Man.
they continue to produce them. So that's what, when you say Erie Jacksons, it's the same mold, but they were made by a different family out in Erie, PA, who had the rights to the Jackson Company. So the colored plates behind me is an
Yeah.
Erie set, and one of the big differences is for accuracy, they'd lathe the lip of the plate, so they're a little less deep
Okay. On
than
the front.
the Andy. Yeah, they're a little less deep than the Andy Jackson, Olympic deep dish plates.
So like this, so like my 35, that's a Generation 3 style, but it's a
Yeah,
1A.
right.
Um, Aesthetically, when you look at it, it looks just like that yellow 35 that you've got
Yes.
there with the lead pockets, 35 pound in between the lead pockets, and then Jackson going across the lettering over the top. But then if we were to measure these, I'd bet mine would be thicker
Yeah,
because he
yours would be thicker, and the
on the
hub, the
front.
hub would be the hub would be a little taller.
Yeah, yeah. So, and um that's why I'm fairly certain that the 25 single and 5 single that I found in the wild are Erie. And there's even, if I grab it here, don't mind my sweatpants.
All right.
So,
Cool. Yeah, I'm in sweats. I'm out in the gym. There's no heat or anything out here.
your gym, yeah, is probably pretty cold. At least I'm in the
Yeah,
basement, which is a little drafty, but I mean,
yeah,
it's not like you. Your commute's a little colder than mine. So,
yeah.
recently, recently on Deep Dish Globes on his Instagram, Nate posted like a walk through the snow after a big snowstorm on it. And he put in the description that was his commute to his gym. And I just thought that was funny. I've been saying it since. But anyway, so yeah, I had it on my surplus strength, uh, pulley system since it's a single. I've been using it on there to do various things. But even when you look at it, I don't know if this was just a plate on top of it. I need to clean it up a little better, or whether these are actually lines where it was machined. But I'll hold it close to the camera and see if you can see what I'm talking about here. Like right where that rustiness is, there's like some lines,
Yeah, so
and
it's a little hard to tell, but
I don't know whether that's machining or what, but when I measured and uh, measured the thickness, it was less than the
mhm.
thickness of my 25s. So I was like, all right, pretty sure it's Erie then. But I
Yeah,
mean,
so
still happy to have him, even though it was post Andy, even
yeah,
though it was Erie Joe, still says Jackson on it. Still a great design, came from the same molds. I'll take it.
yeah, same. Yeah, same molds. Not touched by the hand of Andy, and a little less collectible, but still very very collectible. I don't know that anybody really turned them down, especially if they're finding them in the wild.
No, not at all. So now, I guess a good way to close this is to ask you, you've got this like once in a lifetime, I would think, type of set now, Gen 2 Jackson, not just 45s, but like full set, the whole deal. So where do you go from here? Like, what's the in search of list look like? Like, is there anything out there? Or are you just still,
Um,
enjoying the thrill of the Jacksons to even think about what's next?
Yeah, well, it's funny. And another guy just asked me the same question. A guy I chat with a lot on Messenger that I met through collecting and whatnot. And I said, it doesn't really stop. I don't know how to stop.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's, it's like an obsession.
totally.
But yeah, I mean, certainly anything Jackson, I'd be all over.
Yeah,
That's kind of, to me, the best. There's certainly better stuff and rarer stuff, but anything Jackson, I immediately love. Just for the history, the fact that he was in New Jersey, I'm in New Jersey,
yeah.
the innovation, the accuracy. But yeah, I mean, right now I'm pretty happy with everything. So maybe I'll slow down, but probably
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the same. Like I love I don't have a full globe set yet. I've been working on York bun globes, but I've shared this with you, and I'll just say it now for the listener's sake that my long-term plan is to slowly replace each one with Jacksons. To slowly
Yeah,
just like, because it's going to be a slow process. As I find, let's say, whatever, a pair of 60-pound Jacksons will then outgo the 60-pound York Globes and in come the Jackson Globes. So that's the plan for me, but that is a very long term, slow process.
yeah.
Um,
Jackson
so,
Globes are a labor of love for sure.
yeah.
I have a few pairs. Actually, the very first pair I got was all the way out in Carlisle. Isn't that out kind of
Okay.
out your way?
It's across the
No,
state a
no, no,
bit,
not Carlisle.
but yeah.
Camp. Where was it? Oh man. No, Carlisle was way past Carlisle. I think it was
Okay.
out your way. I can't think of where it was now, but they were 25s.
Nice.
And at the time, they were really expensive. And I went out there to buy another pair, and he still had these. And, I just bit the bullet and I bought them, but I think it was the right move at the time. So,
They just
but
never
yeah.
come up. So it's hard
No.
not to want to buy them.
Hmm.
So that's the tricky thing. And oh, there was when I say they never came up in recent times, my greatest like listing that I missed would be some Jackson Globes that were probably 10 minutes from my house. I mean, like,
Is that the 100 pounder? That one? Is that the one you're talking about? Was there a
yeah,
100 pounder?
there
That's
was one in there. I want to say a waxed 100-pounder, but then there was a
oh,
branded couple Jacksons too, I think, in there.
oh,
There were like three globes, and they were all
yeah,
Jacksons. And now I think it was so traumatic I've blanked it out. No, I'm just kidding. It's
yeah,
not that bad. It's
yeah,
not that bad at all. But I don't remember right now exactly what they were. I just another collector here in Pittsburgh got them. So hey, good for him. I was like minutes behind. Like the seller said, "Oh, we just committed, and this guy's coming from so and so. I'm a man of my word. If he doesn't show up, then you can have him." And as soon as he said where he was coming from, I was like, "Oh gosh, I know who it is, and he's definitely coming for these." Like
yeah.
I just knew, like, up, I lost him. So that's where, like, um, when I was talking about how the Jackson plates were hidden and I felt safer. I mean, it's so competitive when there's a clear shot. Like, oh, do you think there's a city out there that just has one guy or gal looking for vintage weights?
I,
Or
it seems like even Canada's got a lot of collectors now too.
yeah,
So I mean, certainly there's some places with less. I mean, you know this, and I told other people, but I live on the same block as another collector. Literally down the street, there's other guy who's got, I would say, better collection in some aspects than mine. It's the competition here in the Northeast is just
tight.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it just keeps growing in popularity, and I think
Hmm.
that's a good thing. But also,
Yeah,
it stinks for competition when you're trying to get something. So,
it does. But on the other hand, it makes the victories that much sweeter,
yeah,
So when you buckle it into the passenger seat, that's a thing that I see you do and that I enjoy doing as well. When it's something that can ride shotgun, man, that's a great drive home.
yeah, yeah. I love putting weights shotgun, looking at them while I'm driving.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't think it was funny. The Jacksons I put in the front seat when I picked them up, the 25 and the 5, and I don't think the seller noticed, but I was like, yeah, these guys, they ride up front.
yeah. How do you if you're going to pick something up and let's say that you're excited about, do you try to to damper down or like quell your excitement there? I know I just
Yeah.
kind of play it off and just kind of load the stuff up, and then
Yeah.
at a convenient location not too far away I might pull over and give it a better look over.
We're one and the same. I usually pull over once I've left. Like I try to keep a
Yeah.
straight face because
Uh-huh.
um I want the seller to be happy. I want them to, you know, I'm not looking to like steal from someone. I'm not looking to like rip someone off. I want both parties to be happy. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, here's your $100 for, I'm just naming that price, but whatever. Here's your money for these weights. Let me load them up. And I don't know about you, but a lot of times when I'm pulling away, they're profusely thanking me for taking the weights. Like, oh, these have been sitting around forever. Like, actually, I just picked up, um, I wanted the barbell. So, but I ended up buying these Yorks and like milled Yorks and a barbell. And just the other day, uh, pretty cheap, but the seller was just like, oh my gosh, you don't understand. Like, I've moved these three different houses. Like, I'm tired of moving these
Yeah.
things around. Like, I'm so glad to get rid of these. And I mean, he was like thanking me profusely. So it was down the road. I pulled over to see if any of the change plates were milled and to check out the barbell.
Yeah.
That's the move.
Yeah, it's definitely me. I do it all the time.
Well, man, hey, I can't thank you enough. You're the first, longtime vintage weights collector. I got to say, I had Tanner from Massonomics on Lift History to talk about like his entry into vintage weights,
Hmm.
and he's doing well. I'll tell you what, he just, I don't know if you saw on Massonomics Instagram, he just hung up a pair of deep dish,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did see
and
that.
I was so proud of him. I was so happy because he didn't just hang them up on the wall like me. He put them on
Hmm.
the barbell like me. So
Yeah.
yeah, he was lifting them. It's not just a decoration. So I was like, yes, do it,
Yeah,
Tanner.
yeah.
Get those
I saw
deep
that
dish on the
video
bar.
he posted using. Well, I got a rule in my gym. If I don't lift it, and until I lift it, I don't own it. So
There you go. I love
yeah,
that. That's a great
yeah,
saying. Until I lift it, I don't own it. Boom.
yeah.
I love it. And yeah, there's nothing. I'm looking around my gym. I mean, there's really nothing that I don't lift. Like even I was happy we could talk for a long time. I'm trying to close this out,
Yeah,
but
I know. Keep going.
we can keep going. This happened when you picked up the Chrome set too. I remember standing in a driveway for like 2 hours. So the Richard Klein plate that I got is a single two and a
Hmm.
half. But I remember
Yeah.
thinking, oh, this is perfect because I have a blue York 2.5 standard single that
Hmm.
has been kicking around. I'm like, oh, cool. Like these are both singles that I want to keep. There you go. I can throw them on the bar together. So yeah,
Yeah.
and everything in here gets lifted. I don't care how rare it is. So just
So,
a little more conscious as you load up the more rare ones.
yeah. True. I don't deadlift with them all. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But
You're
yeah, no.
actually
Thanks. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. I was gonna
I was
say
just saying. Well,
before we hop off, that's a
sure.
really cool thing that I'd never seen anyone do. That listeners, one more little nugget of wisdom from Deep Dish Globes here. Tell them how you use your rare deep dish to deadlift with safely.
Yeah, so I have a pair of Jack Lane and Legacy bumper plates. They're older bumper plates, so they're iron on the inside and they have a rubber rim on the outside, and it makes them a little bit bigger diameter, maybe an inch or so. So I like to load them up first on the deadlift bar, and that gives me a little extra inch of clearing, which I don't really mind. It's not a competition or anything; it's just
Yeah,
training. So I load it up like that, and then I can put some deep dish on. And when I go to put it down, it's going to hit the rubber first, and not the deep dish. So that's
perfect.
one of the ways that I like to use it. So
I thought that was really cool. The first time I saw him doing that, I think it was a video you had like various Ivankos loaded up and you were deadlifting them, but first you had the rubber
yeah, yeah,
with the
it's almost
rubber
like a little
rims.
built-in deadlift jack too, because
Exactly.
it's a little bit bigger diameter, so the other plates just slide right on and off after that.
And if you were like super concerned about the depth of your deadlift or whatever, you could just stand on like a 1 inch, block or
Yeah,
something. Like I have these
yeah,
wooden blocks that I use for like
hmm,
block pulls and things. I'd just put two of those suckers down and just stand on them if I was all that concerned. So yeah.
yeah.
One last little piece of wisdom from Deep Dish Globes, and please get out there to Instagram and follow him because he's not just showing you cool pictures. He's out there lifting these things too. So really cool collection, Nate. Thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, Rob. I really appreciate it. This is just like a fun hobby, and I love talking about weights and gyms and home gyms, and I enjoy lift history and home gym history, and I'm all over your Instagram, so it was really good talk with you. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, listeners. Hey, if you want to go to Home Gym Con and you don't have tickets yet, so like Nate, this applies to you too. If you end up being able to go, save 10% with code VINTAGE. Save 10% with code VINTAGE, and a couple pennies will trickle my way and help me buy a new computer to, have some better quality podcasts and videos. So I hope to see you at Home Gym Con, Nate. I'll be there doing home gym history. episodes, live episodes on stage, as well as some recorded ones. We have a expanded plan this year. It's kind of cool. So I'm going to be knocking out some episodes over those couple days and just enjoying everything. A lot of the companies we mentioned are going to be there. Mutant Metals will be there this year, which will be really cool. Microgains will be there. You can try out some vintage gains if you've never seen them. I'm going to have some, I'm going to bring some plates and stuff that people can mess around with and put vintage gains on. So, yeah, it'll be a good time, listeners. So please like, subscribe, all that happy stuff. And I hope to see you at Home Gym Con.